The city, Tyler Mayor Don Warren said, simply put, Tyler is transforming from work to improve traffic flow to a more pedestrian-friendly downtown area. The city of Tyler is changing, and with even more change on the horizon. Inside Tyler's new Brookshire Conference Center, Mayor Don Warren updated a crowd of about 800 on the state of the Rose City.
So there's a lot of things that have happened this year, and it's making Tyler transform.
Transformation in Tyler, from the opening of this new conference center to breaking ground on a new medical school, and voters approving a new Smith County courthouse, putting into motion a plan to change the downtown landscape.
When we talk about the transformation of downtown, I'm talking about narrowing down the streets, making it more pedestrian friendly, having two-way streets, taking down the stoplights and having other modes of slowing down traffic, roundabouts.
Changes Warren admits will likely be met with hesitation, but an effort he believes will bring even more people to a growing downtown.
And for the first time, the downtown occupancy of buildings is actually higher than that in South Tyler.
And to keep things moving across all of Tyler, the city continues to retime red lights, an effort Warren says has already resulted in a 32% reduction along the always busy Broadway Avenue.
We've retimed a third of the intersections. We'll do another 18 this year. So the more we go, the better it'll be.
The city also continues to revitalize by removing blighted buildings, restoring the historic brick streets, and rebuilding city parks. Visible changes in addition to work behind the scenes to push Tyler forward.
I think we're in the best position we've been in years as far as people that love coming to work, that work together for the common good of the community.
And to read through the city's entire annual report, scan the code on your screen or go to kltv.com, look on the homepage, click on the big red box, and you'll find a link to this website.